Today we've got sort of shocking news, I guess.
That's the greatest intro we've ever done.
And we're going to be talking about Game of Thrones on today's episode of Certain Point of View, Endgame. Hey, Nerf Herder, I'm Addy Thomas.
And I'm Ben Milton.
That intro was sillier than it should have been. And yet
it's so funny.
Too.
We've never been better.
Yeah.
At this show.
I think people are already just going to think we're high right now.
And we're not. Like, I haven't had anything today. I think it's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
I lie. I did have some.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
It was a long day at work.
Right. Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like it's been a long day and a long night. Maybe the longest night dealing with some of these Game of Thrones fans.
Oh, my goodness. You people. People.
It is interesting, the state of fandom right now. It is very interesting. And that has a lot to do with some of what we're with a part of what we're going to talk about today. But we're talking about two things. We got a big announcement for Certain Point of View. And then we're also going to talk about Game of Thrones as a whole. Yes, we'll talk about the finale. We'll talk about the final season, but also as a whole. And yeah, that's what we got for you on this episode. I do want to remind you, though, we are still part of Certain Point of View, the family of podcasts, where, honestly, we have a wealth of different movie and nerd culture, nerd-adjacent podcasts there, and you can check them out if you're interested in any of those. There's a lot to choose from, really. You can check all of those out on our website, certainpov.com. So, the reason you might also need to choose some of those is because we may not be with you for much longer. Again, I'm keeping it vague and almost like
you make it sound like we have we're
gonna die.
Yeah, like a terminal. One of us has a terminal
I always
illness.
like selling it that way. One of my favorite moments in Certain Point of View, that we've ever had. It's good we're reminiscing on that. But I don't know if you remember when we did our Planet of the Apes review. Case was on with us.
Oh, it was Rest in Peace, Gene.
Yes, and I did the long sell into that Gene was dead, and as opposed to dead to us.
Just dead.
And Case thought he really was dead, a dead friend, and then when he realized that he was just we
were just mad he didn't go to the movies with us,
right?
Like a bunch of petulant children,
and wasn't able to game with us and everything like that
because he had a real job,
right? Oh, that was one of my favorites because I love pulling just that taffy of doing that long sell and then that turn.
Oh, you son of a bitch! That's so good. It is so good. So the long and short of it is we're going to be wrapping up this podcast
because all things must come to an end, but so must the mediocre. So Certain Point of View is coming to an end. We decided, you know what? And we've talked about it at different times over the years. We've changed formats as well a few times. Sometimes we're more general nerd shows. Sometimes we're a more Star Wars oriented podcast. But right now, I kind of feel like we both kind of feel, honestly, we're not filling the space that we're podcasting in as well as we could, and we don't really want to do something that we're not 100% behind. We're also seeing that while we are, by general audience standards, hardcore Star Wars fans, we aren't truly hardcore Star Wars fans.
No. I definitely don't feel that. I feel like it's interesting because, we've talked about it before, previously of hey, if you don't like something, move on.
Yeah.
If you don't, you don't have to sit and rail and get petitions signed. If you didn't like The Last Jedi, you didn't like The Last Jedi. It didn't ruin your childhood. Nobody's childhood was ruined because a movie came out.
Right.
Or a story came out that you didn't like. Or if the Game of Thrones final season wasn't exactly how you had it scripted out in your head, in your own head canon, or you were surprised by it. That doesn't give you, that doesn't mean it. So I'm kind of at that stage now where I'm I kind of it's not that I don't like Star Wars anymore. It's not that I don't love Star Wars anymore, but it's not this. I don't have the same passion for Star Wars anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I still feel pretty passionate about it, but I also I don't know if I can have quite the same conversations I hear on other Star Wars podcasts. I feel if we're going to be a Star Wars podcast, one, we've never pretended that we're going to consume every single piece of Star Wars content out there. And I try to consume as much as I can, but even then I'm like, I try to read all the comics, but I'm not able to. And I definitely have not made anything close to a dent in the books.
Yeah.
And yes, I still would like to read and enjoy some of those, but there's only so much time we've got. One of the reliefs that you and I both felt when we switched from the format where we were going over every nerd show that was out there, all the nerd news, and whatever other topic we had, we liked like that. Like, it was almost like a pressure. It's weird talking about entertainment as pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we were watching a bunch of TV shows, but now I've let go of so many of those shows, and I don't miss them at all.
They're good shows.
And I want to catch up on some of them after the fact, but I don't need to catch up on those week to week. The same way that I felt like for a good amount of time, and I'm still pretty close on it with Walking Dead, with Game of Thrones, with shows that I really
am passionate about.
Like, I'm really into Star versus the Forces of Evil, a cartoon that I really like. But that, it was hard to, say I could catch up with that. I catch up with the new DuckTales, 5 episodes at a time. I couldn't do that if I wanted to put that on the podcast, and if it didn't fit in with the podcast, it probably wasn't going to get watched.
Because we had so much other content, yeah.
Right. And
I think the reality of both of our situations is that we're both really busy people.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we're both professionals, we have jobs, we have families, we have financial obligations.
And
that we have
side businesses
to meet.
outside
side
of this
businesses,
too.
Yep, that are both taking off and growing, and so we have a lot pulling us in a lot of different directions. And at the end of the day, we had to kind of look at each other and go, okay,
what can we really do?
Yeah.
And what can we really do well? And
Right.
what's going to really take us where we need to go next?
Right. And for right now, Certain Point of View is not going to be that.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to stop podcasting.
Yeah. This isn't our last episode.
No.
But this doesn't mean we're going to have an episode next week either.
Right.
We're going to scale back to one episode a month. So the interesting thing is, I mentioned, we're in our end game now.
We're in the end game, Cap. This is it.
The interesting thing is, this year we're seeing a lot of the endings of some big franchises, some big moments. Just last night we had the end of Game of Thrones. Just last month we had a big end point in the MCU. We're about to see sort of the last major story in sort of, I guess, the X-Men, the Fox X-Men movies. I think there's technically one more, but as far
it's
as
not getting released though.
Yeah, it is. It actually they put it on the schedule. Disney
Again?
put it on the schedule
Because it keeps coming on and off.
Yeah, Disney put it on the schedule. They pushed it. I think it's pushed to next year or
That's
something
too bad.
like that. But either way,
it seems like a thematic time to do this too.
And that's such an offshoot.
And we're seeing the end of the Star Wars series.
That's the big one.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing: we did start this as a Star Wars podcast, and we're sort of, kind of wrapping it up as a sometimes Star Wars podcast. But we did start this show before The Force Awakens, so it seemed kind of weird to just end months before the final
the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, the final episode of the Skywalker saga ends.
Yeah.
So we're gonna stick around. We're gonna do an episode at least. Maybe we'll do more than one episode for that. Maybe we'll do a look back. Maybe we'll do a Star Wars rewatch. I don't know. Whatever. We'll figure it out how we end this whole thing.
But we'll get to
at
that
the very least we're gonna get to Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. Because I think we both have thoughts and some excitement about that.
Exactly.
But moving forward after that, the future is uncertain.
Certain point of view. The podcast will be over.
Yes. The network continues to grow and be strong, and we'll be active and guiding that and helping that grow.
Yeah.
And working with the other podcasters.
Exactly, because we still are so very passionate about podcasting. In fact, we will not be done with podcasting. We are going to minimize ourselves to one podcast, though.
Mm-hmm.
And that does mean, and we've talked about this podcast before, on this show and on other shows, but we will be launching a new podcast in the new year, Serial Killers, where we're going to be curating cereal and cartoons. So
right in our wheelhouse.
Yep. It'll be something that we've got plenty of material. There's no foreseeable end to that show with the amount of content. And with the amount of content we have to
The only
consume.
thing that'll end that show is our diabetes.
That's fair. Well, maybe we could move on to granola at some point.
Heart-healthy granola. Oatmeal.
But yeah, so we're changing it up, but we are wrapping up certain point of view. I mean, we've gotten what? We got past 300 episodes, I think.
Yeah, we did really good.
I'm really proud. 200.
I'm really proud of this show.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of the years that we put into this show and the content that we've put out there and the decisions that we've made. It's been an amazing experience, and I want to thank so many of our listeners who have joined with us and hung in with us throughout this whole experience, and those of you who have come on along the way, thank you so much for listening and downloading and sharing with your friends. It does mean the world to us. It really does. It's been a hell of a ride.
Yeah.
It really has.
It's been a lot of fun.
It has been.
And it's going to continue being fun on Serial Killers.
It is going to be. Everything,
we're not disappearing.
Yeah. All the crazy that we bring to this show will probably get notched up a little bit.
Yeah.
When you put in sugar,
when you add sugar to it.
Sugar and milk. It's only going to get a little more hyper.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody. It really does. It warms the cold, dead cockles of my heart to have you with us. Thank you. All right, enough of that. Let's get to Game of Thrones because, man, what a run.
Speak of good things coming to an end.
Right?
Yep.
Wow. That was a hell of a show.
I really like the end.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Here's the thing. I'm a casual fan. I will say that. I don't read the books. I got onto the show late. I binged like the first, 4 or 5 seasons and then got into it. Yeah, I like it.
I thought it was great.
I thought the end was appropriate. I don't know if it's because... Here's one thing I will say. The comparisons to Last Jedi haters might be too easy, might be wrong. I don't know. I will say I do think so many people have come to the show for so many different reasons. Some is, the shocking surprises. Some people came for the mystical element. Some people came for the political intrigue, and the backstabbing and all of that kind of stuff. And I think that if you came for one of those things, you may, and you stayed for just one of those things, you are one of those people who may feel disappointed in the end. The thing that I gravitated to at the beginning of this show was seeing that there were ice zombies, and trust me, I came on way after a bunch of other stuff had been spoiled. Like I came after Red Wedding, Purple Wedding. Like I already knew about those things happening, those events happening. I already knew Joffrey was going to die and he was going to be poisoned, and a bunch of Starks were going to die. I knew Boromir was going to die again. All sorts of stuff like that. So. The shocks were already taken away. I remember one of my early frustrations were like, oh my god, there's this big ice zombie threat, and it's such a small part of this show. So I actually came to terms pretty early on with certain things not quite meeting my expectation across the board, and not having one kind of story be part of this entire saga, essentially. So I had a little bit, I feel like I already started to take a step back and have a bigger view of this series. So when The Long Night ended as quickly as it didn't feel so abrupt to me. Because I know some people have talked about, oh my god, this show has always been building up between Jon versus the Night King. And I didn't quite see it that way because they kept on teasing me with the Night King about pulling him away and, it was you had cool moments. Don't get me wrong. Hardhome was amazing. You had there are plenty of other ice zombie moments I can't really think of right now, just because the show is so big and the scope is massive. But
Uncle Benji saving him and.
Right.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Anytime they went,
was amazing.
Anytime they went above the wall, north of the wall, there was a run-in with walkers.
Right. And I that was the stuff that one of my favorite parts of the series. And absolutely, the political stuff was fantastic.
And I loved all the mystical stuff because I'm huge fan of Arya and the Faceless Men,
right.
and that aspect of it, and the witches and the prophecies and stuff like that. That's what caught my interest in the story.
Exactly, and I got a little bit more into the prophecies as time went on. But I liked the story for sort of the sum of its parts rather than the individual.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why I don't feel the disappointment that some people are feeling.
Here's what's interesting is people seem like a lot of the big complaints that I hear is that this season felt very rushed and there was a lot of poor writing in this season.
Which I disagree with. I think it was different writing, not poor writing.
I don't think it was poor writing at all. In fact, I mean, they went to George R. R. Martin and was like, "Hey, how does this end?" And he told them,
Yeah.
like, "This is how it's going to end in the book too."
Right. It's
like,
maybe going to have some
it's
shading in there.
absolutely. Like these are broad strokes. They only had 6 episodes,
right,
to be able to pull this final season off. And you can say, yeah, well, they should have done it in 12 episodes, and yeah, they should. This show's starting to get expensive.
Yeah.
Was it what I see? Who played Cersei? Lena
Headey.
Lena Headey. She was making $1 million an episode.
Yeah.
Just her by herself.
Yeah. I know people talk about wanting extra episodes. Yeah.
They spent HBO just backed up the money truck and was just like, here you go, have it all. This is all we got.
Right.
Like, do what
this
you
is all
can.
we're willing to spend.
Yeah, because after that, we're just bankrupting HBO.
Which maybe they aren't, but at the same time, let's be honest, you have to.
There's a budget.
Yeah, you have to think about there is a budget. You have to think about that.
And you do have to think about that. So once I put that into play, I was like, okay, things are going to be done in broad strokes very quickly. They got 6 episodes to wrap this whole thing up. Yes, there's a million different threads that you can look at of why does, all these, there's a lot of questions still around Bran, and I get that.
Yeah.
What was he doing during the Battle of Winterfell?
I will say Bran is one of the things I'm a little about. But I also really like too. It's weird.
Yeah,
yeah. But we'll get to that later.
So you can nitpick this to death and pull the strings, and you can do this to anything. And I think that's one of the things that's happening in nerd culture right now is we love to nitpick.
Yes,
we love to nitpick, and we love to take things that maybe really aren't that big of a deal and blow them up into the biggest damn deal you've ever seen.
Yeah,
it's like, well, this is ruining everything. This is just horrible storytelling. Meh. Is it really horrible storytelling, or you just not like the story?
Yeah, and that's the thing that people need to figure, say, if I don't like the story versus condemning it as an issue of quality.
Right. I've seen a lot of posts and a lot of panic in the Star Wars community about Benioff and Weiss coming over and doing Star Wars stuff now, and they're like, these guys are the worst. They're gonna ruin Star Wars. And I'm like, my God, are you kidding me?
My arms couldn't be more open right now.
God bless them. I can't wait to see what they do.
Yeah.
It's gonna be incredible.
Yeah,
absolutely incredible. I don't know what more you could have wanted from this show. I will say this. When the season started out, I was like, this feels a lot like the final season of Lost to me.
Yeah, you did.
And it was that.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, it was the final season of Lost where a lot of stuff wasn't explained. A lot of stuff just kind of was left dangling.
Which I've kind of come to terms with since Lost. Lost has such an interesting place in my mind and in the sort of the history of my entertainment. I'm sure other people might agree or disagree with this, but ultimately the ending was disappointing. But I still love that
show. That show is ridiculously good.
That's a show that I still think about and
all the time.
In the same way that I love thinking about and playing around, re-engineering the prequels. Lost is a show that I think about in that way too.
Oh,
and
interesting.
In the way that the behind the scenes drama also like Star Wars and just the way the craft is approached. And I'm starting now that this debate has become a part of Game of Thrones, I'm starting to get into that as well with Game of Thrones because of there people have talked about the shift in the way that Benioff and Weiss started writing. There's a really great set of tweets. We'll post it in Discord, but there was also an article about it too. But that basically, what's the phrase that the guy used? Essentially that George R. R. Martin likes to meander a little bit more.
God, yes. Those books go all over the damn place.
Right. Whereas Benioff and Weiss are a little bit more okay, here's
They're more efficient storytelling, yeah.
Right. Now, and essentially what happened is once they didn't have text to go with, that's when it switched. So it's not that one form of writing is worse than the other, because both the issue is the shift happens because there isn't a guiding text anymore.
Yeah.
So even though there is a guiding end point,
there's not all the beats are there to or just the general beats are there.
Right. Like a good comparison I heard is when you're trying to land a series this epic, Lord of the Rings comes to mind. It's funny, I compared Return of the King to Avengers Endgame in a big way too, and I think it's fair to talk about Return of the King in this conversation as well for many reasons, because there's certain things that are right to do for the cinematic version. You know, trying to do the scourging of the Shire doesn't work. It's one of my favorite parts, actually, of Lord of the Rings. The fact that the war still reaches home and touches home even after all of the effort that they go through. Some people call it anticlimactic. And you know what? For a TV series, for a movie, that would have absolutely been anticlimactic. And it would have been the wrong thing to do.
Right.
I've never minded all the multiple. I know people love complaining about the multiple endings of Return of the King.
It was about 3 too many.
Yeah, I love all 3 extra of those. I think what they needed to do was take out the long fades to black and fades to white.
So it didn't feel so final?
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly. Because everybody thought it was about they faked you out.
Yes.
That was the problem.
That was the problem. Yeah. It wasn't that I didn't like each of those little segments.
Yeah.
It was that I was like, oh, it's over. Like in my mind, I'm like, okay, it's over. That was good.
Oh no, it's not over. Oh no! And now they said the end.
Yeah, that's what I didn't like.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And this finale almost I think similarly, like when you're dealing with first you're hurtling towards an ending, things are going to be accelerated, things are going to be left out, and this is where book readers tend to benefit because even as a Tolkien fan, I was able to watch and see and understand the context and the subtext and the references. So even if those details weren't colored in perfectly, it was still a satisfying ending to me. So I feel like Game of Thrones is a little bit at a disadvantage at that the existing source material isn't there. Because I don't know how many times I've had people tell me about stuff that's not on the show that has affected my perception of the show. I mean, people talking about is Azor Ahai ever actually mentioned on the show? The prophecy of Azor Ahai?
I don't think so.
I mean, there's a number of things that are not actually a part of the show that has affected the way we consume it. Because here's the thing, you could tell me that, oh, because it's not a part of the show, and the show was so strong for so long that it's irrelevant. I disagree, because this show was appointment watching, and this show was just as much about the conversations week to week, and in between each season, and the theorizing. Mm-hmm. So all those all that material from the books that people told you about still
mattered. Yeah,
were still important because people wanted to consume those details, and people wanted to theorize, and people wanted to be a part of that sort of that energy and sort of the nowness of being part of Game of Thrones. That was all part of this experience. And that's why I look back fondly on the ride that was Lost.
Yeah.
And I know you do this, but I love replicating that with someone who is newly going through it, having those conversations.
What do you think is happening? Where are they?
Right?
Why is there a polar bear?
Exactly. All sorts of
no,
stuff.
And seriously, why is there a polar bear?
I still don't know. Actually, I think we do know, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah. This show... The other interesting thing, it's not a problem, it's the other interesting thing that I see happening a lot is people complaining about the Dany arc.
Yeah, that one, you get no sympathy from me because then you were not watching the show.
None at all.
I'm sorry, but there was character development, guys.
It was there all along. You willingly chose not to see it. And here's the thing about this. This ties in beautifully to the political and social commentary of our day.
Careful.
No, I will not be careful. We already announced the canceling of the show.
Yeah, but we got another show, man.
And this happens across the board. This happens willingly by every person, no matter their race, gender, political divide. Yeah. It happens on both sides, in the middle. It's hero worship. This person I identify with, I like what they're doing. Therefore, I justify in my own mind everything that they do.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to light that, oh shit, this person is actually a bad person.
Yeah.
we get upset and we make excuses and we say, oh, no, that's just bad writing. It's not bad writing. That's who this bitch has been the entire show.
Yeah.
She's been murdering people and destroying cities the entire way through this entire season.
And I want to lump Tyrion in that because I also have seen people think, oh, well, Tyrion at the beginning of the series was smart. Tyrion now is dumb. And actually, no.
He's smarter now.
He is. It's just that things are still, as smart as people are, things are still out of your control.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that And even when he was smart, things were always kind of out of his control.
They weren't always going well.
Yeah, so I think it's odd I mean, maybe it's a much more sad Tyrion, but that is also sad Tyrion after he lost the love of his life, and he had to kill his own father, and he had to go into exile. I mean, there's all
sold into
that's
slavery.
That's where that shift kind of happens.
Yeah.
And then to also realize the person he believes in, like at the end of all of the series, it has turned into a monster. It's, I mean, all of this. Like I really feel that Tyrion and Dany had some of the best arcs in the series, and that's not the only ones who did, but those two in particular.
Yeah, in fact, I would say that they had great arcs. I would say the one person who didn't have a great arc is Jon Snow.
Yeah, Jon Snow's kind of who he is throughout he's a constant.
Yeah, but
that's who he's supposed to be,
Yeah, I mean, but him being the rightful heir to the throne.
Yeah,
I felt like they could have done a little more with that.
That's where I think he's more of a plot device than necessarily.
He's the straw that breaks the camel's back with Dany.
Right, because essentially Sansa is really the character in that who develops out of that because she uses Jon Snow / Aegon as a card to play.
Yeah,
Again, don't absolve Sansa. As someone who thought Sansa was going to end up on the throne, I'm glad she didn't because she also played that card, which ended up putting Dany down pushing Dany quicker down that path.
Yeah,
So I think there is.
There's a
lot to unpack and appreciate.
There really is, and I think as time goes on and as the emotions subside, because people are so emotionally invested in this show,
right,
that they'll start to realize, oh, hey, this actually was really well written. This is who these characters are.
Yeah,
I thought it was genius. I mean, I didn't get emotional or stand up and applaud. But I was.
I never
was
did
on the
go
edge.
Anywhere in the series though.
I remember seeing the Red Wedding and being like, "Oh my God, are you kidding?" Being verbally awakened.
Yeah.
But that's not what this season was about. This season was the end. It wasn't a cliffhanger. It's the end.
Right.
It's got to wrap up. And I like the way it wrapped up. I thought the way it wrapped up was really cool. Having Jon go back up and be the kind of a free man in the North was a very fitting and so fair.
And he got to play with Ghost out in the wild.
You know what? Let's talk about that for a second.
The Ghost complaints.
Oh my God. They totally rope-a-doped you assholes. Everybody who was complaining, he didn't pet poor Ghost. And then they came out and said, we couldn't do it because of CG. Behind closed doors, they were laughing their asses off, going, "Wait till they see next episode." That was the greatest FU to fandom I've ever seen. It was great.
I'm so excited that Benioff and Weiss are working with Rian Johnson. They did announce that they are collaborating.
Oh, excellent.
They do have. I think they still do have separate trilogies that they are working on, but there is collaboration, which. I love the idea that the three of them are going to be able to work together.
It's going to be a mind fuck, that entire whatever these guys put out is going to be fantastic.
I'm so excited for
It might be
future
enough
of Star
to make
Wars.
me come back and do a Star Wars podcast.
Don't do this to me.
No, I won't do that. I think it's time. But Game of Thrones has just been amazing.
We'll find someone else's podcast to jump on.
Exactly. I'm sure that that can happen.
I don't think I'm not sure if you've heard of them, but certainpov.com, there's a bunch of podcasts.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that'd be fun. Maybe we can get on one of Matt's 17 podcasts.
Right.
No, I don't know what else to say about this whole thing. I thought it was fascinating, and the way it ended and where the characters ended up felt right to me.
Yeah, I was really happy with that. The one that I think could have used some more work, though, Bran. Bran was one of my frustrations throughout the show, mainly because they abandoned him for a season.
It was really weird.
Yeah. And here's the thing though. I'm not blaming the showrunners. I think the problems that people have with this show ultimately do come on, George R. R. Martin not finishing these books.
The series, yeah.
Because one thing I have heard is that Bran is a much bigger character in the series, which does make sense if he ends up on the, ends up becoming the king.
Right.
If he ends up, being king of the six, realms.
Right. Yeah. He is a bigger character in the books, and I haven't read all of the books. He is a bigger character in the books, but there's not a lot of indication that this is how it was intended to end.
Right. But here's one thing. Where I do think, again, I think this is such a strong thematic ending.
But the reason I'm saying that is because I can forgive Benioff and Weiss and the showrunners for not putting a lot of emphasis on him in the previous seasons, because it didn't really look like he was going to be the one to. You knew
him as king.
Yeah, you knew he was going to be important because he's the three-eyed raven and yada 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 and the Night King. Like,
and you kind of assumed the Night King's end is like, okay, that's where.
Yeah, you didn't really think it was going to go beyond.
He's going to wheel back slowly into the background.
Right, exactly. No. Instead, he makes a really awkward statement of like, "I knew this was going to happen all along."
What?
You're like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like that line. I did cock my head as I was watching. I was like, that's odd. I wonder what that means.
Yeah, and that's one thing I'm interested to see what happened. Now I'm really interested in reading the books now. I really kind of want to pick them up and kind of see the journey a little bit.
It's never going to happen. That man's never going to finish that book.
Yeah, I know. I don't believe so either. But now I feel like I should at least read to like fill out the shade in.
They're a fun read. Yeah. They're a really fun read, and there's a lot of great character development in there, and a lot of really fun moments and stuff. And but whatever.
Here's the thing, though. Thematically, I'm very happy with what they did with Bran, Tyrion having to serve out, and because it felt more like Bran is a figurehead more than an actual leader, and Tyrion is doing the actual leading, in a sense. I think, and maybe this just makes sense for who we are. And we love the idea of mythology and storytelling and the importance of story. I mentioned earlier, like, stepping back. I felt like when I look back on this entire series, the series really is not just about politics or the mystical stuff. Like, yes, all those elements are important. But ultimately, this story is about how we remember who we are, because all of that is what results in the conflicts in these shows. The idea of like, okay, who is your house, and remember the history of your house and carrying on that identity. The sort of misremembering that who Rhaegar is, and the lessons of the Mad King. Dany being taught who she is part of her stepping into a destiny that she thinks she has to. And that leads her down this path that she, runs down to be, and is a straight up descent into madness because she thinks it's her destiny. She thinks she's doing the right thing. She's willing to commit such atrocities because, one, she thinks she's doing it for good, and she was always meant to do it, and it's justice. I mean, there's so many different reasons. Like, when you get into the headspace, which is why I think this is well developed. Like and as you take away her support structure. If she had been told the Mad King was a bad king, that's a building
colors
block
her, yeah,
that could change
her trajectory.
Who she is.
Right.
If someone said Rhaegar and Lyanna Stark were in love with each other, that changes Robert's rebellion, and that changes the whole a lot of the political infighting that happens for King's Landing, for the Iron Throne. I mean, there's so much that I feel like ultimately it's about that, like, our history and the stories that we're trying to write, and that the Night King was the existential threat to that even existing at all, but then we are just as much a danger to ourselves as well.
Well said.
So
well said. Yeah.
That's the conclusion I kind of got from this series.
And the reality was that way more lives were lost from internally.
Right.
Than externally.
Right.
Winterfell suffered tremendously, and the North suffered by the existential threat, but it was ultimately defeated pretty easily.
Yeah.
Compared to the devastation that Dany did.
Exactly. And the devastation that Cersei and every like all the people, like all the
all
wars,
of them involved. Yeah,
you think like just the fighting, like in the first couple seasons, you know, all of that, you know, or like take it away from just being about being part of noble houses when you deal with a bastard son like Ramsay Bolton, you know, and how he looks at himself as being part of the Bolton, you know, that house, being a bastard, and what that does to make him more brutal. Like, he's such a interesting parallel to Jon because they go in such different directions. You know, I mean, again, like I think if you keep on looking at this as an examination of identity through story and through history, and you know, you get to see, even like in the final moments, like as Brienne is writing the book, who Jaime is and trying to remember him as a noble person rather than as a person who was so obsessed with a love, you know, that he died protecting his queen, which is what he would have wanted to be remembered as, you know. And yes, he did very noble things along the way too.
And he did some horrible things along the way,
right?
too.
But again, like there's that mix of it, and like, so what
do we remember? What do we take away from it? And I think you're right. I think like that's an important lesson. I think that as I was watching that scene unfold, it felt to me very much like it was the writer saying, "Hey, look, there's going to be awful things. Like, what do you want to remember? How do you want to be remembered? And what do you want to remember?
Right.
Because that's the story going forward.
Because that's who you are going to be. And that's who people are going to take.
In another
away.
generation or two, they're going to flip through that book and they're going to look at Jaime Lannister's entry of, you know, he was the Kingslayer, yada yada yada, and he died protecting his queen.
Right.
You know, and that's the bookends of his story, and it's appropriate. I mean, I wasn't crazy about his arc this season.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of wanted him to go one way or the other.
Right,
and
rather than both.
Yeah. And he was flippy-floppy, wishy-washy a little bit.
I think that's such a good
but
thing.
But that is exactly who that character was, as you go back and look at it.
And historically, who some people are. Like, we wanna deify, like, you see that especially in American culture.
And politics.
Yeah, but like, you think about the way we deify the Founding Fathers. Mm-hmm. Dear God. But then, like, the way we also want to trash them, too. Mm-hmm. Like, can we realize that these are people, yes, who made mistakes? We're not going to take anything away from the mistakes that they made. But these are people who did some good things, too. Some things that were out of self-interest, too. Let's not pretend that it was all noble, either.
Right.
But, like, people are complex. People do things. And this is the beauty of the way George R. R. Martin's meandering style, like that, is you get to really kind of get into that. And I think that's what some people missed in these last couple seasons. But I also think it was necessary. Like, I will say, as someone who binged the show, I was a little bit more, like, the seasons that I'm less favorable about were a little bit too much time with Arya and Braavos. Like, I liked getting the lessons, but I felt like that, like, those 2 seasons before they depart from the story material, where it feels like it meanders a little too much. And I was like, oh, I'm so glad when they just kind of start moving when Benioff and White's. I'm so different from a lot of the other fans of this show.
Right.
But I loved when we finally got a sense of direction. It's like, I don't care that you didn't take 3 seasons to show me the ship trip around Westeros. I don't need that much time.
This doesn't have to be a real-time log.
Exactly. I don't need 73 hours of Dany crossing the sea.
Yeah, it was good. I'm so glad that I watched it. I'm so glad I've read the books that I have, and I'm HBO is going to take a brutal hit after this show because subscribers are going down.
Oh yeah, for sure. I know they put, what was it? What's the new series? They made sure to put that ad really quick. Oh well, there was a Westworld ad too, but there was the his darkest.
His dark material. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That one, they put that ad out as quickly as possible. It's like, hey, fantasy people,
hey,
got stuff.
We have things shiny over here. Although forget that the Westworld 3 season, I did not expect that to be Westworld.
I thought I was done with Westworld
until I saw that.
Yep.
I did too. I saw the end of season 2 of Westworld. And I go,
okay,
I think I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't think I need to see any more. I'm totally back in. They got me.
I don't even know. I can't explain it.
I don't know what the show's about. I don't know what's going to be happening.
Yeah.
It's all new characters and new people, and I'm excited.
Yeah. Damn it.
So good.
They got me.
So good.
They got me.
God bless the Nolans.
I will, yeah. Yeah, that being said, I got to finish up Barry. I finished up Veep.
Oh, I gotta start Barry.
Yeah. Season 2 is oh my God.
Everybody says it is.
It's so funny.
Again, this is one of those things where I'm like, I just gotta find time to do stuff.
Right.
So something's gotta give. So
Yeah. So once I finish Barry, I'll be able to get rid of my HBO sub. So.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, are you excited for any of the prequel, the other series for Game of Thrones that are coming, the spin-off series? Yeah.
Like I know they're doing one about
the Age of Heroes going into the Long Night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah. I mean, I'll watch
interested.
I'll
I'm interested, but I'm not. Yeah, I'll
watch
give it
the first season.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. I'll totally give it a shot. I mean, if it's anything on par with what this show has been, it'll be.
I'm expecting different to an extent, but
I hope so.
Yeah. Like,
you're not going to capture the magic that this show has. Like, Walking Dead has tried to do it. Fear the Walking Dead, and it's like, yeah, I've already seen this, but this is with
what's really weird?
Characters that I don't like.
I saw a trailer recently for Fear the Walking Dead that made me watch it, and I was like, I think I want to watch the show, but I'm like, I don't want to catch up on the show. I can't
feel like it's the kind of show you need to.
Yeah, and I can't.
Everybody's dead. Everybody's dead from the original series, except for like one or two people.
Yeah, but I can't jump into a show mid-series. I have to start from the beginning. So
you don't want.
So it's
to.
not going to happen.
You don't want to.
Yeah.
You don't want to.
Quick thoughts. Do you have like a favorite moment in the entire series? How about we do this? Favorite moment of this season, and then favorite moment from the series, or favorite episode, character, anything like character arc.
My favorite moment of this season is Arya killing the Night King.
Yeah,
I loved that.
Yeah,
I've watched that episode 3 times now. And it's better every time I watch it.
Yeah.
It's so well done. They build the desperation of the moment so well. Jon Snow is pinned down by the dragon. Theon's dead. It's just Bran. He's surrounded by walkers. The Night King is there with all his with his boys, like, and they're doing like the cool like
West Side Story.
Yeah, like, well, not even West Side Story, but they're doing like a Boys to Men kind of like
Night Boys to Men.
Yeah, Night Boys to Men, like standing looking at him like, bitch, we got you, we nailed this. Like everybody is in just like a state of like, well, shit.
Yeah,
like everybody is screwed, and out of nowhere Arya comes in.
Yeah,
and then fails by getting caught, drops the knife, and then stabs, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, the execution of that was...
It's fantastic. I don't know how anybody could have been mad about that. Like, it's so good.
The Dragons Above the Clouds might be my favorite
beautiful,
moment.
Right?
Yeah, favorite character moment, though, I will actually say the celebration at Winterfell after that episode. Because I love how quiet it is, and then... as it becomes more celebratory, but then like how they're playing with each of the characters in that scene, I thought was one of my actual favorites. I mean, there are a couple other character moments. I also liked Sansa and Dany's conversation when they're almost friends,
and then they pull away from each other.
I thought it was really, really cool just to see how close they almost came.
Yeah,
so, like there could have been something, but it didn't happen.
And I love the Clegane Bowl.
Yeah, Clegane Bowl was really good. I think the favorite moment of the series, favorite episode of the series for me is still going to be Battle of the Bastards.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so good. It's so good. Also because they do something with the battle that's unusual in terms of like the claustrophobia of it.
Yeah,
which is something you just don't see in movies.
No, it's like everybody's like 20.
Anti-Braveheart.
Yeah, like everybody's 20 yards
you
apart.
Got space to like do moves and choreography. William Wallace could like do a whole like he could do Pilates,
and then like he has time to like shout and talk to people in the middle of a fight.
Right, one-liners.
Yes. Yeah. No, the Battle of the Bastards is
Someone to me commented recently about an Endgame, how it doesn't make sense that anybody would have time to like talk and hug on the battlefield. I was like, yeah, but that's movies, man.
Oh, you wanted a documentary. I'm sorry.
I mean, that stuff happens in Gettysburg, the movie, and we know that stuff doesn't happen.
People's level of expectation, I think, ruins so much for them.
Right?
Their expectations ruin. That's one of the things that I'm learning as I get older and like studying more Buddhism and stuff like that is like just
middle way, man.
Middle way. I have no expectations one way or the other. Like it's all good. Like you enjoy so much more when you're not like this is how it's going to end.
Right.
This is how it has to be. And if it doesn't meet these expectations,
and I enjoy the act of theorizing.
Sure,
but I like that I don't have attachment.
Yes,
it's very much
so
the correct Jedi way.
Yes, you are a great Jedi, my friend.
Oh man! So now that we brought it to our sometimes Star Wars moment, I think we'll go ahead and wrap this up. I'm trying to think. Is there any? You know what? Hodor also. That is the one moment that really did emotionally hit me. Only because Red Wedding couldn't do it just because it already was spoiled.
Yeah.
But yeah, that
one got me too emotionally.
Hodor
is probably the emotional high point of this series for me.
Yeah, for sure.
That one was great. So tragic.
Yeah.
So tragic. I mean, we shouldn't. Every season ended on such a downer. I mean, the fact that we got a relatively happy ending out of this show is pretty amazing.
Right.
I mean, unless you were a Danny fan.
Yeah. Yeah, well, in that case, we'll go ahead and we'll end on that note. Don't forget, you can, your reviews are, I guess, appreciated at this point, but we're wrapping up, so
whatever.
Just save your review for when we start Serial Killers, guys.
Yeah.
But until then, we are still going to be on Discord, and all of our other podcasts are interacting there on Discord. You can find a link to Discord on our website, certainpov.com. And until then, stay scruffy, my nerf herder.